Hello, I'm Helen Bradley. Welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to draw a strawberry in Illustrator, and along the way you're going to learn a whole lot of really cool Illustrator techniques. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can draw a strawberry like this in Illustrator. Now, there are a lot of things going on with this shape. Firstly, there is a pattern fill here, and we've distorted it so that it looks a little bit more natural as it fills the strawberry shape. We've also got a darkening around the edge of the strawberry and a lightning halo here, all of which are done within the shape using the appearance panel. For the top of the strawberry, we've got this sort of dimensional shape that's got darkened edges and a second dimensional shape inside it. Again, all of this is done with the appearance panel, and we've actually got a mask in the appearance panel that limits the effect that we've created in the appearance panel just to the original shape. And finally, there's a little shadow below the strawberry. So there's a whole grab bag of really cool Illustrator techniques in this tutorial, and they're all involved in drawing what looks at the first glance to be a fairly simple strawberry, but really is anything but. To start off this illustration, I've created a document that's 1,000 by 1,000 points in size, but your image can be any size that you like. And we're going to start off by drawing these strawberry pips. And we're going to do that using an oval. So I've just created an oval, and I'm clicking on the direct selection tool so that I can isolate this point here. And I want to make this into a pointy point, so I'm just clicking on this convert button here. And this is the basic shape of my strawberry pip, and I'm going to color it yellow. So I'm going to pick a yellow color here from my swatches, and I don't want any stroke on this at all. So there's the shape that I'm going to use for my strawberry pip, and we're going to make a pattern from this. So I'm going to choose Object, Pattern, Make. And this adds a new pattern to the pattern swatch. Now, grid is not what I want. I want brick by row, and I want my brick offset to be 1/2 because that offsets these shapes from each other. And now I'm going to increase the width and height values to spread my strawberry pips apart. And I want a pattern that's really quite distant from itself, so I don't want everything really close up. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here so that we can see that this pattern is really quite spread out. And once I'm happy with the pattern I've created, I'm just going to click Done. And then I can come here and select this pip and remove it because the pattern is already saved in my swatches. I'm pressing Control or Command 0 to go back to the original size of my document. I'm going to grab the ellipse tool again because we're going to use that to create our strawberry shape. So I'm going to drag out a sizable sort of ellipse, and I'm going to target again the direct selection tool so that I can alter these points individually. And I'm just going to bend this shape a little bit so that it looks a bit more like a strawberry. Perhaps elongate the bottom and flatten the top a little bit. If I hold the Alt key as I hover a handle, I can change the top handle and not have it affect the second handle on that point. So I think I've taken this a little bit far because my strawberry's got a bump on it. Okay, so let's call that our basic strawberry shape. Now I'm going to create the pips on the strawberry not by just filling it with a pattern. And the reason for this is when I fill it with the pattern, even if I size my pattern down, my pips are all going to be in this rotation, and they're not going to bend around the edge of the strawberry, and I would like them to bend a little bit. So let's go back to just a regular fill on this. It doesn't matter what the fill is right now because we're going to write it over in the next step. I'm going back to select the ellipse tool, and I'm going to create a large ellipse, an ellipse that is big enough to cover the strawberry. You don't want to have it too big, but it does need to cover the strawberry shape adequately. And now I'm going to fill this with my pattern, and as you can see, my strawberry pips are way too big for this shape, so it's time to scale them down. With this oval selected, I'm going to choose Object, Transform, Scale. And here we don't want to transform the object, so I'm going to disable this checkbox because I want my oval to be still an oval shape, but I do want to scale the pips down so that they're going to be the right size for my strawberry, and I think it needs to be just a little bit smaller. And I have transform pattern selected because that's what allows me to make this pattern smaller within the fixed shape, and I'll click OK. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use the envelope distort tool in Illustrator to put this pattern on this strawberry and slightly distort the seeds in the process so that they bend a little bit around the edge of the strawberry, as you might expect them to. Now there is a trick with the envelope distort tool. I'm getting to it by choosing Object, Envelope Distort. I'm going to click Envelope Options because this is a critical setting, Distort Pattern Fills. You need to have Distort Pattern Fills selected or your pattern fill is not going to distort when you add it to the strawberry, and you're just going to end up with exactly the same effect as if you just put the pattern in the strawberry in the first place. And we do want to distort the appearance as well, so let's just click OK. Now in the Layers palette, which I can get to by choosing Window and then Layers, I'm going to reverse these two paths because the strawberry is on the bottom and the pattern is on the top, and I want them to be the other way round to use the envelope distort. So I've just dragged the strawberry path up to the very top. If I just temporarily change the color of my strawberry, you'll be able to see that more clearly in the Layers palette, that the strawberry is on top of the pattern. So now with the selection tool, I'm going to select over both objects. So I'm just dragging over both so that they're selected, and I'm going to choose Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Top Object. And what that does is it fills the strawberry shape with our pattern, but as you can see, it's sort of bent and distorted a little bit around this shape, so it looks a bit more dimensional than it would have if we just dropped the strawberry pip pattern into our strawberry. So there's our basic strawberry shape, but of course it's got the pips, but it doesn't have any red color. So the next thing we need to do is to add a red fill to this as well. To add the red color to the strawberry, I'm going to use the Appearance panel. So I'll choose Window and then Appearance so that we can see what it is that we're looking at here. And with the Selection tool selected, I'm going to select over the shape that we've created. Now at the moment we're seeing the envelope, but we can double click here to see the contents of it. And this is what we're looking for. We're looking to make sure that we can see this fill that is the pips in the strawberry. And you may need to check what you have selected here to make sure that you are actually seeing this in the dialog. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky because these two icons are not accessible, the ones that we typically use to add additional fills and strokes. And this is disabled as well, Add New Fill and Add New Stroke. But what we can do is we could duplicate this fill, and so I'm going to grab it and just drop it onto the Add New button, and that gives me two fills, and right now they're exactly the same. They're both a set of pips. But if I take this bottom fill, which is the one on the lower level, then I can change it to a solid color fill. And when I do that, you can see that now the strawberry is filled with this red color. The pips are on top here in this fill layer, and then the strawberry color, the red, is below. And now we can add some color to our strawberry, some highlighting, and we'll do that by duplicating this fill layer yet again. And this time I'm going to lighten it a little bit. So I'm going to choose a lighter color. And I'm going to bring this fill layer in so that it is smaller than the rest of the strawberry. So with this fill layer selected, I'm going to choose Effect, Distort and Transform, Transform. And this setting that we're applying now, we're concerned only about how it is affecting this yellow-orange layer that we've created within the Appearance panel. So I'm going to scale it down much smaller. You can see that we're getting this sort of highlight area, And if you have a look at it, you'll notice that this is a perfect oval. And the reason why we created our envelope distort using an oval was so that we could actually use this feature later on, so that our highlight would be an oval. If we were to have used a square, then we would have had a square highlight, and that wouldn't have been quite so good. So I'm going to move it horizontally a bit and then in a negative vertical direction to move it up on the strawberry. So this is going to be my highlight, so I'll click OK. Now I can make this a bit softer on the edge by selecting it and choose Effect and then Stylize, and I can give it a feather. I'm going to click on Preview so that we can see the feather amount, and I'm just going to increase it a little bit so you can see that we're getting this highlight with a sort of glow edge. So I'll click OK. It's also possible to add a darkening effect to the edge of the strawberry, and to do that I'm going to target this bottom fill, which is the actual red color of the strawberry, and I'm going to target it, and we're going to add an inner glow to it, and the inner glow is going to darken it. I'll choose Effect, Stylize, and then Inner Glow. And our inner glow color is going to be a darker red because we want to work with a darker red. So I'm just going to make this a dark color here. I'm going to click on Preview so that we can see what we're doing. We want to select Edge, not Center. If we choose Center, then the glow is going to be in the center of the strawberry. If we choose Edge, it's going to be on the outer edge. And now the blend mode needs to be Multiply because we want a darkening effect, and Multiply is a darkening blend mode. And I'm just going to increase the point size of this blur so that we're seeing it around the edge of the strawberry. And I'll increase probably the opacity as well so that we get a higher opacity level. And this is giving us a very visible darkening effect around the edge of the strawberry, and you can increase the blur amount if you want to. Just want you to be able to see very clearly here in the video what's happening. You may choose to make it a lesser effect because you can go for something a bit more subtle. I'm thinking it actually is a bit dark here, so let's just take it down to 80%. And I'll click OK. But you're understanding now how you can get a darkening effect around the edge of the strawberry and this highlight by just using fills. And if you wanted a second highlight, you could just duplicate this one, make it a bit smaller, and also place it on the strawberry just by using the Distort and Transform tool. But for now, let's call that good for our strawberry, and let's go ahead and make the little top for our strawberry. And you can make this in any number of ways. I'm going to use ovals, just simply because if you're not really good with the pen tool, this is an easy way of creating them. So I'm just going to drag them out. Let's fill them with a sort of green color, so we're working with colors that we're going to use. I'm going to target the direct selection tool on this point and just make it pointy. And now I can take this shape by selecting the selection tool or pressing the letter V, and I can put it in position on my strawberry, and I'm just going to rotate it. Now life might be a little bit easier at this point if I just lock down my strawberry so that when I'm moving things, only the top of the strawberry is being moved and I can't actually select the strawberry itself. Sometimes that just makes life a little bit easier. And again, with the direct selection tool, I'm just going to bend this shape. Well, I'm going to try and get this point alone and just bend this shape so that it's now going to be one of the leaves on the top of my strawberry. And I can rotate this around this point and create a few of these leaves. I'm going to select it with the selection tool, and then I'll choose the rotate tool. I'm choosing the rotate tool because I want to be able to change this rotation point. Right now this is the rotation point. I want it to be up here. So I'm going to click here by holding the Alt key and then click on that point that I want to be the rotation point. Well, as you can see, we're already seeing what's happening here, so I'm going to take this rotation angle back to 0, and then let's just move it around to where the first of our points is going to be. Well, we need to take this in a positive direction, and I'm thinking probably around 20 degrees will be sufficient. And I want to copy. I don't want to lose my original, I want a duplicate, so I'm going to click copy. And that's given me 2 leaves on my strawberry. I'm just going to press Ctrl D a few more times to create the other leaves. And I'm not worried that they're all going in different directions, because the mere fact that they're actually created for me is a big step forward. I'm going to target the direct selection tool, and now I can come into any of these shapes and just bend them back the way I want them to be. I could also, I'm just going to undo this one, I could also flip this one, that might be easier still. Select it, Object, Transform, Reflect, and I want to reflect it over the horizontal axis and just click OK. And now I can move it into position by pressing V to target the selection tool and just rotate it into position and move it there. But you can create the leaves on your strawberry however it suits you to do this process. I'm going to flip this one too. Reflect it horizontal, click OK, because I don't want to copy, I just want to flip it, and I'm just going to move it into position. Now once I've got the leaves of my strawberry created and I'm happy with them, I'm just going to do a little bit more work here. I'm going to actually join them all together to make a single shape, because that will allow us to work with this object as a single shape rather than a series of little shapes. But I think right now some of these are a little bit on the long side. So I'm just going to drag back on their anchor points to make them a little shorter. And because it's a strawberry and it's a sort of organic shape, we don't have to be too fussy about these being perfect, because they are just little leaves at the top of a strawberry. So let's call this good. So I'm going to select over all of these shapes by clicking on the selection tool and just make sure I'm picking up all these shapes. This is again another reason why I would anchor the rest of the strawberry, because I can just drag over everything and all I can select right now is the strawberry leaves, because the strawberry itself has been locked away where I can't get to it. And now I'm going to select the Pathfinder. Well, I thought that was the Pathfinder, but it's not. So let's go and get the Pathfinder. Window, Pathfinder, and I want to select this option here. It's called Unite, and what it does is it unites all of these shapes together into a single shape. And now we need a little stem for our strawberry, so I'm going to do that with the rectangle tool. Just add a little rectangle, rotate it, and just pull it into position. And then I'm going to join that with the rest. So again, selecting over both shapes and just click Unite. Now as I added some shading and lightness to the strawberry, we're going to do the same for the top of the strawberry, and we're going to do that again with the appearance panel. So I'm selecting over this shape, making sure that I can see my appearance panel, and here is my fill. So I want to darken the edges, so I'm going to add a inner glow to it. With the fill selected, I'm going to choose Effect, Stylize, Inner Glow. I'm going to go this time and get a green color, because I want my edge effect to be done in a darker green. I still want to use multiply. I want to preview the effect, and here I'm going to bring the blur right down. So I'm thinking 10 points is probably a better blur, and again the opacity is much too high here, so maybe 65% will be sufficient, and I'll click OK. And now if I want to add a slight glow to this shape, I can do the same thing by duplicating this fill layer. So I'm just going to drag this fill layer onto the Add New icon. I'm going to make sure that this time it is a lighter green, and I want to add a glow, this time a lighter glow. So let's just open this fill layer, because it's already got an inner glow. It's got that darkening inner glow. So this time we want to change that. So I'm going to double click on that to open this inner glow back up. And this is a second version of it, just affecting this lighter layer. So by changing this, we're not changing the one that's attached to the darker. So now I want to work in screen blend mode. I want to work with a much lighter green color. I want this to be in the center this time. I want to see what it is that I'm doing, and I want to bring this down to quite a small blur, maybe 7.5%, and I want it to have quite a reduced opacity, probably about 45% opacity, and I'm just going to click OK. Now, right now, this fill is right over the top of the other fill. It's way too big, so let's go and make it smaller. We'll select this fill layer and choose Effect, Distort and Transform, Transform. And what we can do here is transform the object, the size of this object that we're working with. So I'm going to start to bring in its horizontal and vertical size. So it's much smaller than it was, and we're going to move it in a negative vertical direction because we want to move it up on the shape. Now I think it doesn't need to be quite so different horizontally, but we want to get something that is a sort of interesting shading effect on our shape, so I'm just going to click OK. And now we can change the opacity of this layer right down by just double clicking on opacity, and let's just reduce the opacity of this layer so that we're getting a sort of shaded look to it. Now if you have a look at this effect, you'll see that it's actually gone over the edges of the original shape. Now what I'm going to show you next is an advanced technique for masking all of these effects back to the original shape. So that's what we're going to do next. To create my mask with this strawberry top selected, I'm going to choose Edit Copy, Edit Paste in Place. So I've got a duplicate of this shape on a layer all by itself, and I'm going to select that and just press the letter D to set it with the default appearance, which is a white fill and a black stroke. Now what I want to do is to take this shape. I'm actually going to remove the stroke, but I'm just going to settle for this white shape. I'm going to take this white shape and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. So I'm going to click Edit, Copy. So it's now on the clipboard, and I'm going to hide the original of that shape, and I'm going to target the green shape because this is the one that we want to create the mask for. So now with this green shape selected in the appearance panel, I'm going down here to its opacity. It's the opacity of the entire shape that I want to affect, so I'm going to click to open opacity. And you can see here that there's a Make Mask option, so I'm going to click on Make Mask. And I'm going to make sure here that I've targeted the mask itself, and I'm going to click and choose Edit, Paste in Place. And what that does is it actually creates this mask for this shape, and you can see that the mask's effect is to clip the appearance so that it just sits inside the original shape and it doesn't go over the edges. So I have clip selected and I've pasted my copy, my white filled copy of the top of this strawberry into this mask, and what that does is now limits the appearance so that it only affects the inside of this shape. So that mask is now in place, so anything that I do to change this shape or any of these appearances will only affect the actual overall shape. But you can see right now that we've got something a little disconcerting happening here. You can see that the fill is white and there's no stroke. Right now what I'm working on is the mask, so let's just go back to the opacity here, and before we leave this dialog, let's click here on this shape, and that sets us so that we're no longer editing the mask, we're editing the shape itself. And now when I click out here, you can see that the options that I have here are for the shape, not for the mask itself. So having done that, we're pretty near done with our strawberry. I'm just going to add a little shadow below it. So I'm going to click on the ellipse tool and just add a shadow. I'm going to fill the shadow with a simple black to white gradient. I'm going to make it a radial gradient. And I'm just going to drag over the shape with this radial gradient and just make sure that the gradient is shaped down to sort of fill this shape. I want it lighter on the outside, darker on the inside, so I'm going to reverse the gradient. And if I click out of the way, you can see that we've got this little sort of shadow shape. If we want it to be bigger, we can just increase the size of the shape, and then the gradient gets a little bit bigger in the process. I'm going to move this behind the strawberry so that it looks natural behind the strawberry by just unlocking the strawberry layer and just drag the path below the strawberry. So there you have a technique for creating quite a sophisticated shape in Illustrator. You've created a pattern for the pips, you've bent it into a strawberry shape, you've added a highlight and a shadow to the strawberry, all using the appearance panel, and then you've created the top of the strawberry and added shadows and highlights to that in a different way. And finally, you've added a drop shadow so that the strawberry actually sits on a plane so that you can give it a sense of place. I'm Helen Bradley. Thank you for joining me for this Illustrator video tutorial. Look out for more of my tutorials here on my YouTube channel, and consider subscribing to my channel and you'll be alerted when new videos are released. And visit my website at projectwoman.com, where you'll find more tips, tricks and tutorials on a range of applications including Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator and a whole lot more.